of peace and the ability to center there no matter what's going on. So today what really, this week, and what's really been coming to me lately is this idea of living in the unknown. And it feels like I've never lived in the unknown before, that I actually maybe always knew what was going to happen next. You know, I went to school, I knew I was going to graduate. I got pregnant, I knew there would be a baby. I went to bed at night, I knew the sun was going to rise the next morning. I feel like I always felt like I was in the known. But then somebody mentioned to me that that wasn't necessarily true. And I thought about that and I was like, that is true. I thought it was the known, but it never really was the known because I was always in the unknown, even when I didn't know it. So I actually was practicing a false known, kind of. So, but now I feel like I'm in, we were doing a panel yesterday of practitioners, and I'll talk about that more later, but we were on Zoom, and the whole thing was supposed to be live this week in California, and it was not able to be done that way, so we were on Zoom, and as I was sitting there, I almost like started to go into that place of like, when is this gonna be over? I wanna see these people, I wanna touch them, I wanna feel them, I wanna be with them. And there we were on Zoom, and I was like, when is this gonna be over? And it's unknown, it's unknown. I mean, we know it will, but there's a part of us that's still like waiting for it to be over. And I know today this week on the island, we're able to go back on the beaches, and that's a really big deal here to be able to do that. But we're waiting still, we were waiting, and now we're waiting for other things. We're waiting for like, when is CSL Kauai gonna be able to open its doors again and allow people to sit here and love on each other like we always do every Sunday? We're waiting, we're waiting, we're waiting. And we're in the unknown, but if we think about it, we're waiting for somebody else to make it known for us. And there's more to it than that. Yes, there's a world of effects that we're waiting to have happen, but there's more to it than that. There's a known that can always be known. And that's what I want to focus on today. I mean, it's reminding me of when back in 2011, I tore the retina in my eye, and I had to have that one of those little things where they put the bubble in your eye. And I went home with my husband, and I had to be on the couch every day for 10 days. I couldn't go to my bed. I had to sit up at a certain hour, lay down at a certain hour, turn this way, turn that. I did everything the doctor told me to do, and I was waiting for it to be over. But it was a time that I got this opportunity to go really deeply within myself and create a partnership with Spirit and the doctor, which is all one thing, and create a healing. But still, I waited until finally there was this little bubble in my eye, and it had to disappear before it was over. Apparently, I was waiting for this bubble to disappear. And one night, right before I fell asleep, the bubble disappeared. And my husband and I looked at each other and we're like, the bubble's gone. What do we do now? And we just said, I guess we can go to bed. And we went to our bed and we slept there for the first time in 10 days. But I'm like, okay, it kind of makes me feel like I feel now. When am I going to be able to take my mask off? All right, obviously I don't have my mask on right now because I would be really weird trying to speak in this microphone with a mask on. But when am I going to be able to go out and take my mask off? And when I do, what then? What? I'm still going to be in the unknown. But what I've learned is the unknown is a really, really powerful place to be. And I get to choose how I live in the unknown. And that's the thing that's known, is my conscious choice in every moment. And am I being subject to the world of effects and waiting, or am I creating from this, amazing place of not knowing, this place where I don't have any idea, but only that I have a power and presence within me that's my consciousness that I get to create from that place. So what's consciousness? Like when Jesus said, in my house there are many mansions, and he wasn't talking about physical houses. He was talking about within God, there are many mansions, there are many levels of consciousness. And we get to choose where we want to live in those mansions. We get to choose how we want to live. And it's all about our consciousness. We have a joke in the ministerial and practitioner world. When we take an exam, if we don't know the answer, we just write consciousness. And it's usually going to be the right answer. No, not really, but but there is truth. Everything is consciousness. And I think sometimes we don't want to believe that we really have a choice to live in the consciousness that we want to live in spite of what's going on in the world of effects. And that consciousness is going to be reflected back to us of how we're living in the world of effects and what is appearing in our world of effects. So we all are living through this at the same time as one world, but we're all experiencing it differently. And I think we have to accept that everybody's experiencing it differently, and that we get to choose to experience it exactly how we want to experience it, and to move through it exactly how we want to move through it. And it's not about your mask or anything. It's about where your consciousness is and what it is you want for your life. And we have a saying in the, it's not a saying, it's actually a quote by our Dr. Ernest Holmes, the founder of religious science and a mystic of the 20th century, who wrote, the Science of Mind textbook and many, many, many other books. And one of his later books was the Seminar Lecture. And this came up in our panels yesterday, and the quote is, "The absolute is the relative at the level of the relative." The absolute is the relative at the level of the relative. So in other words, the absolute, when we call it the absolute, we're talking about spirit. We're talking about first cause. We're talking about the power behind everything. We're talking about what the quantum physicists call the field. We're talking about that. That is the absolute. And the absolute is in the relative, which is the relative world, the world at the conditions, at the level of whatever that is. So it's never gone. It's always there. God can't go away. The absolute can't go away. It's expressing itself at the level of the relative. So when you look at your world, you'll see how first cause is expressing itself. So it's never going away. Sometimes when people are suffering, they think that God's over here and and I'm experiencing this. No, you're experiencing it as God. No matter what it is, you're experiencing it as God is having an experience through you in the relative world. And it's all according to consciousness. You're bringing your consciousness to your experience. So you get to experience whatever it is. I mean, really, come on, let's think. When people are sick or have an illness, they say, "Oh, well, I'm in a bad mood because of that." No, you probably were in a bad mood before, and you're just, you're the personality you are. You're the consciousness you are no matter what is going on. So what we have to work on now is consciousness and raising consciousness. Now, I'm seeing people thriving during this. I'm seeing them thriving. And I don't mean thriving like taking advantage of other people. I mean, they're just thriving because their consciousness is in a thriving consciousness, and they're excited about the possibilities, and they're living in the unknown, and they're saying, what can I create? And then I've seen people crashing and depressed and sad. And this last week we had 4 suicides, and people need help, and they need our help. But the only way we can help people is if we have the strong consciousness to be able to help them. We can't go walking out into the world in a consciousness that's vibrating at their same level. And that's how we're going to help people, by raising our own consciousness. So I'm hearing a lot of different ways of experiencing this, and different ideas of what could possibly happen. And I'm not going to go into all of those things, but this is what I know. And I know it for certainty, and it's becoming more and more clear to me. I'm knowing, and I know that I get to have the experience I want to have, and that I don't have to buy into other people's consciousness about this experience of the pandemic and what could follow this. That I get to live how I want to live from my consciousness and experience the world that way. I could drop into despair and conspiracy and all these things, but I don't want to see that. I don't want to live that. And I know that in my Father's mansion there are many houses, and I get to live in the house that I want to live in, the consciousness I want to live in, and see that. I'm not afraid to say it because I really feel, for myself, it's the truth. I get to choose. Right now, it's more important than ever that I get to choose the consciousness that I want to live, and I get to live from that conscious awareness. Now, the title of the talk today is The Home Stretch. This is the home stretch, as far as I'm concerned. Not necessarily the home stretch of the pandemic. I don't know what's going to happen with that. That's the unknown. But the home stretch of our species, of our planet, of where we're going and where we want to go, and how we're going to live, and what the next generation is going to get to experience because of how we act right now, how we live our consciousness right now. So in reality, I feel that's the home stretch. And in the home stretch, if you look up the definition, it says, like in a racetrack, it's the last turn to the finish line, the final stages, really, of any undertaking. So what usually happens, I know I ran a marathon, what usually happens, and I've been in situations where you got a deadline, the 11th hour, you got to get it done. That's when you put your best effort forward, usually. Usually save, like the horse in the horse race, they let it all go, and he runs to the finish line, and he might have been holding back a little bit. Well, it's not time to hold back anymore. We need to go forward now. We need to think forward. We need to be a higher consciousness. We need to live in love. We need to live in peace, but we don't need to wait for somebody else to tell us that it's okay to do that. And I think sometimes we're waiting, and we don't need to wait. If we keep waiting, the healing is not going to come. We got to live it now. We got to work on our own consciousness, because as we work on our consciousness, we lift other consciousness, because we are living in one field. Why do you think all the metaphysicians that are preaching now and teaching and are saying that same thing? They're saying, let's come together, let's pray, let's meditate, because we know that we lift. We lift consciousness when we do that. Well, it's not enough to just do one meditation. We have to live it every single solitary day, and we have to keep ourselves on point. And when we realize who we are, that's going to be the biggest thing. When we realize who we are right now, if we can just center on that and keep centered on that, that's why I use spiritual mind treatment, because spiritual mind treatment moves energy. That's what it does. It moves energy in a definite direction. When you have something definite that you want to experience, you use spiritual mind treatment, and it's moving. That's what it does. It moves energy. So I have to stay firm in my belief. That's why I use spiritual mind treatment, and remember who I am. Back in time, they were just on the walls everywhere. It was written, know yourself, know thyself, know yourself, know yourself, go within. I mean, how many more times do we have to hear it? So I'm knowing, and I'm probably preaching to the choir, so I'm just giving you a little, cheerleader thing here to just go within and remember who you are, because that's going to be the most important thing to get us through these times, is to remember the power and presence of God, that light that is not outside of us, that is right here, that has every single solitary answer that we need, that we have this energy, this source. We are built for this. We know exactly what to do in every moment. Nobody has to tell us what to do. We know. We don't need to listen to other people's opinions. We just need to go within and ask, and everything is there for us. And you know how you'll know it's the truth? Because it'll be good, and it'll be uplifting. It'll be life-giving. And that's how you'll know it's the truth. Because that's the way life is. That's the way God is. That's the way love is. It's life-giving. And it allows you to remember that you're loved and you are love. So Ernest Holmes has a beautiful quote, and I'm going to close with that. Because my major thing today in this home stretch is to remember who we are. That's my only mission on this island. My only mission on earth, I believe, is to remember who I am and to assist others to remember who they are. To look in the eyes of a person and know that they are God, no matter what they're experiencing. That does not matter. They are still God. They are still light. They are still love. They are still a place that's never been touched by anything. And we are dealing with a power, Ernest Holmes says. The universe is inexhaustible. It is limitless. It knows no bounds and has no confines. We are not depending on a reed shaken by the wind, but on the principle of life itself, for all that we have or ever shall need. We are depending on the principle of life itself. It is not some power or a great power. It's all power. All we have to do is to believe, never wavering, no matter what happens. As we do this, we shall find that things are steadily coming our way and that they are coming without that awful effort which destroys the peace of mind of the majority of the race. We know, he says, that there can be no failure in God's mind, and that this mind is the power on which we are depending. There is nothing else. It's all God, it's all power, and we all have it. Nobody has a right to that. It's everyone's right. So there you go. And that's all I have to say. I love you so much. I love this teaching. I love what's happening. I know that we're all strong and that we have everything it takes to move through this. And I'm just grateful, grateful, grateful. And I just say, and so it is. And thank you, Jeevan.